This is Football at 4.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the moment, whatever the sport, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Adam Caplan from Inside the Birds podcast, which you can find on any podcasting platform, is here. And check out their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. Well, the injury report generally drops on this Friday edition of the Sports Bash for a Sunday game, but the Eagles don't play till Monday night. But Jordan Mailata was asked about how Jalen Hurts looked in practice. He said, next question. Not good. Adam Caplan is here. A.J. Brown did not practice. The injury vibes not feeling great, Adam Caplan. How are you?
Yeah, it's just Hurts didn't really do much yesterday. They said he was limited. He didn't throw, from what I understand, but he did throw today. We'll look into it. Jeff and I will find out what Moshe and I will find out for our Monday night show. We actually are dropping a special show Monday morning. It updates just the injuries and lineup changes for both teams, particularly for the Eagles because they have a way worse injury situation. Baker Mayfield has a new injury. He's an ankle injury, but he'll play. He didn't work yesterday. He also has this ribs injury. But getting back to the Eagles, yeah. Brown didn't do anything today. So, look, he got – it's that right knee, and it's the side of his right knee, which is the MCL area. So we'll see. I'm not really optimistic. So we'll see, Mike. As you said, they have 1 day of practice left, and that would concern me. A.J. Brown is arguably their best player of any position, and they need him. And you saw what life is like without him last week. Wasn't good after he got hurt. And obviously Devontae Smith, by the way, will be back from his ankle injury. That's good. And Blankenship, by the way, again, not good. Blankenship didn't work today. He's got that groin injury. Their depth is paper thin right now at the safety position.
Yeah, if Brown didn't play, would this be a Watkins or is that a Julio Jones?
It's a receiver by committee. They would go with Jones. They would go with Watkins on the outside. I don't see one guy playing all the snaps. But the thing with we know with A.J. Brown is he's kind of limited. Julio Jones is limited in how many snaps he can handle, and that's the problem that you have, is that you can't ask Julio Jones to play 75% of the snaps. You might give him 20, 25 snaps. That's at maximum. So that's why Watkins, who, by the way, had his best game as a professional last week. I know the game didn't really mean much in the end, but he did a good job. So you got to give him props.
Yeah, and if Blankenship couldn't go, what are we looking at? McCollum back there?
Yeah, McCollum most likely now. When you look at their situation, Mike, they just didn't sign a veteran safety. That was really odd. So the only thing, though, with McCollum is that I believe he's out of elevations now, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double-check that. Yes, he was activated week 4, 16, and 18. So he would have to be signed off their practice squad, and they would have to make room for him. They'd have to cut somebody. So Mekhi Gardner, Mike. Mekhi Gardner is also out of elevations. But, again, McCollum, being that he was the guy who was called up last week, you would think he would be ahead of Garner right now.
We'll keep an eye on that. Check out the Inside the Birds guys. They'll have an update on that on the Monday podcast as well here. By 4 o'clock on Monday, we probably right about 4 o'clock, we'll get the answers of who's in and who's out. You talk about the Buccaneers. We had Jenna Lane on earlier. She said Baker Mayfield did practice. That's obviously their big one. Is there anything else happening of note for them?
Tristan Wirfs, left tackle, he'll play. He had an illness. He didn't work yesterday, but he'll play. If you look at the Week 3 game, Mike, and this game, boy, the Bucs are all sorts of banged up in that game. Coming into that game and coming out of that game, they lost Jamel Dean, who was one of their starting quarters due to injury. And now they're one of the healthiest teams for the playoffs. So that matters, man. The Eagles, people don't realize this, but not only were they the healthiest team coming into the playoffs last year, incredibly, they wound up all 22 starters who were in the lineup in Week 1 against Detroit last year were in the lineup against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. That is part of the Super Bowl hangover. When you don't have your starters or you have a bad injury situation, you might not get back, and that's part of the reasons why the Eagles are struggling right now.
Tampa, by the way, has won 5 of their last 6. Philly has lost 5 of their last 6. So how do they match up? The Eagles' offense playing against this Tampa defense. When the last time they played, you had 200 yards rushing on 40 carries here against this Buccaneers defense. So offensively, what do they look like on that defensive side of the ball?
All right, so let's just get started with Tampa's offense versus the Eagles' defense. So, Mike, yes, the Bucs have won 5 out of 6. They had a 4-game winning streak, but you have to consider who they played. A terrible Carolina team they barely beat, and then they beat them again 9-0. They beat them 21-18 and 9-0. They beat Atlanta by 4. They had a great win at Green Bay. Mike Evans had a great game there. They beat a struggling Jacksonville team, and they lost. They played poorly. Baker Mayfield was awful in the first half against New Orleans. So it's what they're going to do is you're going to see this happen in this game. So we know the Eagles are very poor at cornerback. You can expect the Bucs to play heavy 11 personnel. When rookie Trey Palmer comes in, when they go 3 wide, you're going to see Chris Godwin go inside. And that is a very difficult matchup for Avonte Maddox, who, by the way, is off the injury report. He had a hyperextended elbow. He's fine. But that is a problem. The Eagles don't have the quality of depth. We told people coming into the season, depth has nothing to do with how many players you have at a position. It's how many quality players you have at a position. The Eagles don't have enough quality at the cornerback position, and it showed, Mike. It's a big reason why they're struggling as much as they've done. So that would worry me. Mike Evans, you're going to see him cover him more than any of the corners that they have, particularly when they play man. You could expect Slay to be on Evans. Rashad White's their running back, Mike, but he's not explosive. He's a downhill stop-and-start runner with great vision and good instincts. He doesn't take a lot of negative runs, but he's not explosive. I don't worry about him. I don't worry about the run game. I know the Eagles' run defense has not been great, though it's better last week. It's faded in the second half. But I'm more worried about if Baker Mayfield gets time, Mike, downfield throws, and this kid Trey Palmer, number 10, watch out for him. He could flat-out fly. They've missed on some explosives with him. His yards per catch average is not high. But this is a guy who was one of the fastest receivers for the draft. So when you look at their offense, now their offensive line, one more thing before we get the other matchups. Their offensive line, 5 new starters in terms of where they would line up last season. But they've really come on here, and they're playing much better in the second half. So it will not be easy, and you know how bad the Eagles' pass rush has been.
Okay, there's a look at the Buccaneers' offense against the Eagles' defense. Let's look at the Eagles' offense, which could be without A.J. Brown, and a compromised Jalen Hurts here. So what kind of matchups are you looking at over there?
Yeah, so in the first matchup, Kalijah Kancey, number 94, they run a 34 front. He didn't play due to a calf injury. Vita Vea played at half speed. They limited his snaps in that game. He didn't play well. He came in with an injury, and then Carlton Davis, their best corner, didn't play in that game. That absolutely impacted the matchup. The Eagles did a great job of taking advantage of it, and they're all back for this game. So it's going to be harder. It's really hard to run on the Bucs overall. Eagles, as you said, ran over 200 yards now. 2 key defenders were dealing with injuries in their front, though. And I'll say this, though. There's certain type of runs that have worked very well for them. I'm told gap runs where by the way, those are the same type of runs that gashed the Eagles against the Cardinals. When the Bucs are more of a zone running team, but when they do gap stuff works against their defense. So that's something to keep an eye on, I'm told. But and Devin White, by the way, who's on the final year of his rookie deal, if he got benched earlier. He's number 45 now. He got his job back at inside linebacker. And that's part of why every once in a while they don't do great against the run, but overall it is hard based on the numbers and based on what's happened this season to run on them. Now, Mike, they've got to pass protect better. This is embarrassing how they've looked. We had some great notes on our show today that dropped on all of our platforms about the hot route stuff. We got to the bottom of it. We have the term. You only get it by listening to the show, but we know how the Eagles run their hot routes, if you want to call it that. But overall, they have to do better IDing pass rushers. They've done a terrible job of doing it. It's really odd, Mike. I don't understand this. The criticism of Sirianni, I think, is warranted in this. I don't know what has happened to his offense. It's his scheme. The protections have not been as good. And you're going to see a lot of Kenny Gainwell in this game in pass protection. You have to, because Swift is not good enough at it. And that's why Swift's numbers catching the football have gone way down this season.
Adam Caplan, real quick, I just see Kevin Byard talking a little while ago about Avonte Maddox saying that he had to work at safety today. Do you think that's something that we could see as well? Maddox moving from corner to play safety, would they feel better about that than some of the options that we threw out there?
Well, gosh, Mike, they're kind of limited. I mean, Avonte Maddox, you talk about safety, correct?
Right. Apparently, he practiced at safety today.
Yeah,
now, they've had corner issues at that spot because when he's out, that's been a revolving door.
All right. So this is what they could do. We know that, and this is funny. I remember back in 2018, I think it was, so 19, whatever it was, where Maddox had to move to safety because the Eagles were wiped out to safety position, and we didn't know that. Nobody knew that that Jim Schwartz practiced Maddox there. Look, you can do it. You can do it, but Bradley Roby doesn't. This is my problem with it, Mike. If they do this, let's say, for argument's sake, let's move this along here. Let's say Blankenship is out this right with his groin injury, and they move Maddox to safety. Okay, he didn't play it in a while, but he can do it because he's been asked to do it over his career. The problem is Bradley Roby, yes, he's a veteran, he's savvy and all that, tough. He doesn't run as well. Godwin is an elite slot receiver who can flat out fly. That does worry me. That would worry me a little bit. So, yeah, you put Roby out there. He's a veteran in that scenario. That's the way, to answer your question, that's the way it would have to work. Roby's a backup slot. Remember, he was inactive 2 weeks ago. That was odd. He was active last week. So it's interesting that they might do that. But look, the Eagles have major problems, Mike. I hope this game's competitive. I don't want to think about what would happen if it's not. That would not be good for anyone who's on the coaching staff. So let's
doesn't sound like it. Right. Some reports today that there could be some changes with the Eagles.
A lot of speculation, Mike. That's all I'm going to say. There's a lot of speculation. Not a lot of facts, but the defensive staff is struggling a little bit here. And then offensively, Mike, I don't know what the heck is going on. I don't know why it doesn't look as good. Listen to our pregame show, Lamont and Cosell with Mosher and I Monday night, though, that we're going to have a lot on that.
Cool. All right, Adam Caplan, Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast, and check out their YouTube channel as well. Just search Inside the Birds. All right, Adam, we'll talk to you next week, pal.
Sounds good. Thanks.